Consider the weight of a hand tightly clenched around a handful of sand. No matter how fervently you grip, the finer grains slip through your fingers, scattering across the earth. And yet, when you open your hand and let the sand fall freely, you realize something profound. What you tried so desperately to hold, you now possess without effort. This simple truth mirrors the most complex struggles of the human mind, our pursuit of control, of desire, and ultimately of contentment. Life often presents itself as a vast, unruly garden. Within it, we plant the seeds of expectation, hopes for recognition, wealth, love, mastery, or security. We nurture them obsessively, watching for signs of growth, worrying when growth seems slow, and adjusting endlessly in an attempt to force what will not be forced. But the garden teaches a subtle lesson. Growth flourishes not through compulsion, but through patience and attentiveness, through a gentle release of the illusion of control. This is the paradox of letting go. We assume that more effort will yield more results, yet the universe responds differently. It moves not in the rigid patterns we wish to impose, but in a fluid rhythm that respects timing, context, and the quiet alignment of forces beyond our perception. In resisting this natural flow, in grasping for outcomes, we often trap ourselves within cycles of disappointment, frustration, and exhaustion. Imagine a man obsessively pursuing perfection in every aspect of his life, his career, his body, his relationships. He sets unattainable standards, measuring every moment against them, tallying successes and failures with meticulous scrutiny. And yet in doing so, he becomes blind to the richness already surrounding him. A smile unnoticed, the warmth of a passing sunbeam, the subtle music of a conversation. The more he chases perfection, the more he suffers, unaware that his grasping itself blocks the very experience he seeks. This insight is not new. Across centuries, sages and philosophers have observed that human desire often works against itself. Take the example of Seneca, who reminds us that wealth is the slave of the miser, but the servant of the wise. The miser, in his desperate accumulation, remains perpetually unsatisfied. The wise, in contrast, who cultivates detachment, finds that what they need arrives naturally, almost effortlessly. This is the quiet rhythm of life, rewarding those who release rather than cling. Consider your own mind as a mirror. When you focus intently on some perceived deficiency, perhaps a mistake you made, an opportunity missed, or a person who hurt you, your attention becomes a lens that magnifies the problem. Every imperfection, every misstep, every regret looms larger than it truly is. And yet, when you step back and allow these reflections to pass unjudged, when you observe them without identification, something shifts. The mind, previously consumed, begins to regain clarity. The shadows retreat, not because you banished them, but because you stopped feeding them with your obsession. It is here, in this space of relinquishment, that the paradox emerges. By ceasing the frantic effort to grasp and control, by releasing the tight hold on our expectations and fears, we find a deeper form of ownership. Not ownership of external objects, circumstances, or accolades, but a mastery of the self, the calm, unshakable center that remains untouched regardless of what unfolds. This is the heart of the paradox. By letting go, we gain everything we ever truly wanted. Alan Watts explored this concept with a piercing clarity. He suggested that our desires are often misdirected, aimed at external phenomena we believe will satisfy us, when in truth they are mere reflections of our inner need for harmony. Watts provocatively asked, "Why do you chase what is already here?" His words confront the core of our struggle. Often we seek externally what is already within us, and in chasing outward, we estrange ourselves from inner fulfillment. To understand this more deeply, picture a river flowing through a canyon. You may attempt to dam it, redirect it, or harness its energy. In doing so, you expend tremendous effort and face frustration when the river refuses your commands. Yet if you align with its flow, if you observe, respect, and move with the current, the river becomes your ally. Its energy carries you forward naturally, without the strain of resistance. In life, our desires and circumstances operate in much the same way. Resistance breeds struggle, whereas alignment fosters grace and abundance. Consider the human pursuit of love. How often do we chase affection, approval, or validation, believing that to earn them is to secure happiness? Yet in the pursuit itself, in the constant calculating of gestures and outcomes, the very connection we desire becomes distorted. It loses authenticity, becomes an object to possess rather than a shared experience to embrace. When we release the compulsion to control another's feelings, when we engage from a place of sincerity and presence rather than need, love flows naturally, often surprising us in its depth and timeliness. This principle extends beyond emotion to every facet of existence. Creativity, for instance, resists force. The artist who strains for inspiration may find the canvas empty, the music lifeless, the words elusive. But when the mind is still, when expectation softens into openness, ideas emerge unbidden. The act of release, paradoxically, becomes the key to creation. In the realm of ambition, the lesson resonates with equal force. Consider an entrepreneur tirelessly seeking success. Every hour is calculated, every risk meticulously analyzed, every setback a source of anxiety. Yet those who achieve with grace often report moments of surrender, decisions made with intuition, opportunities embraced without frantic effort, trust placed in the unfolding process. The paradox is unmistakable. Relentless striving may yield exhaustion, whereas thoughtful release can summon opportunity. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer illuminated this dynamic in The Human Condition. He described life as a ceaseless striving, driven by the will, a force that constantly urges us toward objects of desire without ever delivering lasting satisfaction. He suggested that true contentment arises not from accumulation or achievement, but from the quiet cessation of this compulsive drive. Every fulfilled desire, he noted, reveals another yearning, each attainment a prelude to the next dissatisfaction. By stepping aside from this endless cycle, by renouncing the compulsive chase, we access a state of serene equanimity. Our modern society, however, rarely encourages this wisdom. Everywhere we turn, messages urge us to want more. More possessions, more recognition, more experience, more influence. The subtle implication is that we are never enough, that happiness is perpetually just beyond our grasp. And so the cycle continues. Chase, achieve, measure, compare, and then chase again. It is a treadmill of desire disguised as progress. Yet even within this societal pressure lies the opportunity for rebellion, not outwardly against others, but inwardly against the internalized assumptions that bind us. Imagine a man in the midst of a bustling city, surrounded by advertisements, social media, and relentless cultural cues. Each whisper tells him he lacks something essential. Each image suggests a life superior to his own. And yet he pauses, breathes, and simply observes. He notices the sounds of the street, the patterns of light on the pavement, the subtle warmth of human presence around him. In that pause, the illusion of scarcity fades, and he experiences abundance. Not the abundance of material objects, but the richness of presence, the fullness of life itself. The Stoics also emphasize this principle of release. Epictetus taught that we should distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. Our judgments, choices, and actions lie within the realm of mastery. Everything else, from external events to the opinions of others, remains beyond our command. By focusing on what we can govern and accepting what we cannot, we cultivate a resilience and tranquility that no external acquisition can provide. Here again, the paradox manifests. Freedom is found not in dominance over the world, but in surrender to the natural order of things. To bring this closer to the self, envision your desires as fire. A fire can provide warmth and illumination, but if uncontrolled, it consumes indiscriminately. The desire to possess, to achieve, to be recognized. These fires, when left unchecked, burn us from the inside. But when tempered with awareness and restraint, when allowed to serve without ruling, they become tools of life rather than agents of suffering. In this tempering lies the paradox. The more we release the grip of desire, the more its benefits are realized naturally. Even our concept of identity is shaped by this tension between clinging and letting go. We often define ourselves by what we have acquired, what we have achieved, or what we are perceived to be. Yet these constructions are fragile, contingent, and ultimately illusory. True identity, the self that endures beneath the shifting tides of circumstance, emerges not through accumulation, but through a patient observation of life as it unfolds. We discover ourselves in the spaces between striving, in the quiet moments of reflection, and in the surrender to what is, rather than what we think must be. As you reflect on these ideas, imagine standing at the edge of a vast forest at dawn. Mist drifts gently among the trees, sunlight filtering in slants that illuminate the leaves with a golden hue. You feel a gentle breeze, hear the quiet calls of distant birds. In this moment, there is no need to grasp, no demand to attain, no rush to arrive. You are fully present, and in this presence, you perceive a truth that eluded you in the clamor of striving. Life, in all its mystery and imperfection, is already generous. The practice of letting go does not imply passivity or inaction. On the contrary, it is an active engagement with reality as it is, a deliberate alignment with the rhythms of life. It is the difference between pushing against the current and learning to navigate it with skill. We act, we strive, but with awareness, with discernment, and without attachment to outcome. The results, liberated from our obsessive control, often surpass anything our grasping could produce. The paradox extends even to suffering. Pain, loss, disappointment, they are inevitable facets of the human experience. And yet, when we release the urge to resist, when we allow sorrow to flow through us without judgment or denial, we discover resilience and depth. The suffering does not vanish, but its sting diminishes. Acceptance becomes a shield, paradoxically stronger than denial, and the human spirit emerges not hardened, but tempered. In this way, letting go is not surrender in the ordinary sense. It is a courageous confrontation with reality, a refusal to cling to illusions, a choice to meet life fully awake. The act of release becomes a gateway to freedom, clarity, and authentic joy. It is the quiet path that leads us to the very fulfillment we once believed required struggle, control, or accumulation. In surrendering to what is, we encounter the subtle art of timing. Life's rhythms are neither linear nor predictable. Events unfold not according to our schedules, but according to a logic of their own, intricate and often hidden from immediate view. The person who resists these rhythms, attempting to force outcomes prematurely, experiences frustration and fatigue. Yet the one who moves in concert with the natural unfolding discovers that opportunities arrive precisely when needed, not a moment too soon, not a moment too late. In this alignment, patience becomes not a passive waiting, but an active attentiveness, a trust in the unseen orchestration of existence. Think of a tree in the depths of winter. Its branches are bare, and the world seems dormant. From the perspective of the anxious observer, there is only emptiness, a void where life should be. Yet beneath the surface, unseen currents of sap flow, roots gather strength, and life quietly prepares for the inevitable bloom of spring. This is the principle of the invisible becoming visible, of progress achieved not through force but through patience and faithful release. So too with human desires, what seems absent may simply be gestating in ways that cannot be hurried. Our attachment to control often arises from fear. The fear that life will not provide, that pain will overwhelm, that we will remain unfulfilled. Yet by gripping too tightly, we amplify the very anxiety we seek to escape. Imagine trying to hold on to water. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips, leaving your hand emptier than before. Release does not signify neglect or indifference. Rather, it signals a deeper trust in life's intelligence, a recognition that the currents of existence often carry us more effectively than brute force ever could. Even the concept of time itself becomes malleable under this philosophy. Those who cling to rigid expectations measure life in milestones, deadlines, and achievements, constantly evaluating the present against imagined futures. But time, when experienced through the lens of release, expands. Moments become rich with texture, attention deepens, and the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. A simple cup of tea, a quiet walk, or a shared glance can, in this state, hold the fullness of an entire lifetime. Paradoxically, by letting go of the rush for tomorrow, we inhabit today with unmatched clarity and presence. The human mind, however, is stubborn. It has evolved to fixate, to seek patterns, and to obsess over deficits. The practice of release requires deliberate discipline, not to suppress thought, but to observe it. Thoughts, like clouds passing over a vast sky, come and go. Some are heavy with emotion, some light and fleeting. By watching without judgment, by refusing to seize each one as truth or threat, the mind begins to experience spaciousness. This spaciousness is not emptiness, but freedom. The freedom to engage with life creatively, without the distortions of fear, desire, or compulsion. Consider the work of Rainer Maria Rilke, who spoke of living the questions rather than demanding immediate answers. To release is to embrace uncertainty, to accept that not all outcomes are knowable, and to walk forward without clutching at guarantees. In this embrace, life itself becomes a teacher, revealing lessons not in the form of conclusions, but in the unfolding of experience. The person who learns to dwell within questions rather than resisting them discovers an enduring richness unavailable to those forever clinging to certainties. Even in moments of grief, this principle manifests. Loss strikes with the force of inevitability, and yet the attempt to suppress or deny its impact often prolongs suffering. To release in this context is to honor the emotion fully, to feel it without retreat or avoidance. The paradox is that such surrender does not weaken us. It strengthens, allowing us to integrate the experience and emerge with a deeper capacity for empathy, wisdom, and presence. Pain, paradoxically, becomes a doorway rather than a barrier when met with awareness and acceptance. Desire, in its purest form, is not a call to accumulation, but a compass pointing inward. When we confuse it with the acquisition of things, status, or validation, we entangle ourselves in an endless cycle of chasing shadows. Yet when we turn that same desire towards self-understanding, toward clarity and alignment with our deepest values, it becomes a vehicle for liberation rather than bondage. Here, the paradox crystallizes. The more we release external attachments, the more intimately we discover what we truly seek. Even our social bonds illustrate this pattern. Relationships often become arenas of subtle struggle. We cling to others, expecting them to meet needs we cannot satisfy ourselves. Control, manipulation, or calculated giving may emerge, driven by fear of loss or inadequacy. But the heart that practices release approaches connection differently. It engages fully, loves without strings, communicates openly, and trusts the natural ebb and flow of interaction. The relationship flourishes not because of strategic effort, but because of authentic presence and mutual freedom. To hold lightly is, paradoxically, to hold deeply. Let us consider ambition once more, from a perspective often overlooked. Those who grasp relentlessly for recognition, titles, or influence are often ensnared in the very structures they seek to master. Yet those who pursue excellence without attachment, who commit fully to their craft without obsession over outcome, often achieve far more than they imagine. The release of expectations sharpens focus, fosters creativity, and invites synchronicities that cannot be manufactured. By renouncing the tight clutch of desire, we invite a subtle guidance that can never be imposed by will alone. The natural world offers endless illustration of this principle. Rivers carve canyons not through brute force, but through patience. Mountains erode over millennia, yielding valleys and fertile soil without urgency. Seeds germinate in darkness long before they break the surface. These patterns echo the wisdom embedded in human existence. Persistence is not synonymous with forcing, and growth is often invisible until the moment of revelation. To align with this wisdom is to honor process over obsession, to trust emergence over imposition. Even creativity, that most human of endeavors, thrives in release. The writer staring at a blank page, the musician waiting for a melody, the painter confronting a canvas, all know the futility of force. Ideas, like water, cannot be coerced. They arrive when the mind is open, not when it is clenched. The act of letting go, of expectation, of judgment, of fear, creates the fertile ground in which inspiration arises naturally. Paradoxically, it is surrender, not aggression, that fosters the most potent creation. And yet society teaches otherwise. From birth, we are conditioned to compete, compare, and acquire. Achievement is lauded, struggle valorized, and patience dismissed. The culture of constant reaching fosters anxiety, dissatisfaction, and the illusion that fulfillment is a distant prize. In the midst of this, the act of release becomes countercultural, radical even. To let go of striving, to step back from compulsive ambition, to trust life's unfolding, is to swim against the current of conventional wisdom. Yet it is precisely this rebellion that uncovers true freedom. Even our understanding of time, desire, and identity begins to shift when release becomes practice. The past is no longer a chain of regrets. It is a reservoir of lessons. The future is not a horizon of worry. It is a space of potential. The self is no longer a construct to be fortified through achievement, but a living presence to be observed, nurtured, and expressed. In this reorientation, we find that abundance is not measured by accumulation, but by the depth of awareness and the fullness of engagement with the present. Release also brings a profound humility. It reminds us that the universe is neither adversary nor servant, but a vast interconnected system in which we participate. Our desires, actions, and intentions ripple outward, yet the outcome is never ours to fully command. To let go is to recognize the limits of control, to embrace uncertainty, and to act from a grounded place of wisdom rather than anxiety. It is to surrender the illusion of omnipotence and, in doing so, to reclaim true power, the power of discernment, presence, and intentional engagement. Imagine, for a moment, standing at the shore of the ocean. Waves rise and fall, tides shift, winds change. You may attempt to command the sea, to hold it still, or to direct its course, but the effort is futile. Yet by stepping into alignment with the water, by sensing its patterns, by moving with its flow, you find freedom. You move with grace rather than against resistance. Your power emerges not from domination, but from harmony. In life, the same principle applies. Release does not mean passivity, it means attunement, and in attunement lies profound agency. The paradox extends to happiness itself. True joy cannot be chased, it cannot be seized or stored. When we pursue happiness as if it were an object, it recedes. Yet when we relinquish the grasp, when we immerse ourselves fully in experience without expectation, joy arises spontaneously. It is a byproduct of alignment, presence, and acceptance. The moment ceases to be a means to an end and instead becomes its own reward. Even freedom, often imagined as the external liberation from circumstance, finds its deepest expression in internal release. To let go of fear, attachment, resentment, and expectation is to step into a state of freedom that no external condition can take away. The mind, unburdened by obsessive grasping, experiences vastness, clarity, and serenity. Paradoxically, the more we release, the more sovereign we become over our inner world. In this continuum of insight, life begins to reveal its subtle architecture. Desire, ambition, love, creativity, and even suffering are not obstacles but instruments of awakening. When approached with a spirit of release, each becomes a teacher, guiding us toward understanding, compassion, and presence. The effort to control, to dominate, or to cling diminishes, while the ability to engage, to observe, and to harmonize expands. In this dance, life itself becomes a partner, responsive, intelligent, and profoundly generous. Ultimately, the wisdom of release asks us to reimagine the very nature of fulfillment. It is not found in accumulation, domination, or relentless pursuit. It is found in the spaces between effort and surrender, in the quiet embrace of what is, in the courage to trust the unfolding of existence. By letting go, we do not lose, we gain. By releasing our obsession with control, we discover mastery. By surrendering our compulsion to possess, we uncover abundance. The paradox is complete yet simple. The more we release, the more we own. Not objects, but life itself, in its richest, most unfiltered form. If this message resonated with your spirit, consider sharing it. Someone out there might be carrying the same questions, the same doubts, the same quiet hope, and your sharing might be the reminder they need. Stay true, stay kind, stay you. For more insights on philosophy, personal growth, and the art of clear thinking, subscribe and turn on notifications. Flow through life and embrace the journey of thought with curiosity and insight. Seek truth, seek wisdom, and remember to question everything. Until next time, stay curious.